Hi, welcome to lesson 4. So I heard that you guys are improving a lot and that you are able to understand what I'm trying to say, and that's great. So continue to keep up the good work. And today we are going to learn Unit 5, and here we are going to learn I do, work, like. These are just examples, but this chapter is about present simple. So last week you guys learned about present continuous. Present continuous, if you remember, is what is happening right now. That is very important. That's why we have the word continuous. Now, what is present simple? Let's look at some examples and see if you get an idea of what present simple is. Alright, so let's look at these two people in the first picture. Okay, they have a lot of books, right? And she is saying we read a lot. Okay, so how do we describe this picture? We can say they have a lot of books. They read a lot. Okay, so they do a lot of reading. Now let's look at the second picture. He's saying I like ice cream. So how can you talk about this picture? You can say he's eating an ice cream. Remember, this is from chapter 1. He's eating an ice cream. This is what he's doing right now. So, for present simple, it will be this sentence. He likes ice cream. Okay? So, let's look at more explanations over here. So, they read, he likes, I work, etc., etc. etc. means so on and so forth. And these are all what you would call present simple. So how do you use a present simple tense and when do you use these words? So this box over here, oops, okay, let me just show you this one. This is very important, okay? So make sure you remember this. So when you are speaking in a sentence, or if in a sentence you are using these words, which is I, we, you, they. So basically what I mean is if you're talking about more than one person, we and they, you're talking about more than one person, or you're using I, or you're using you, then you would use the words that are like read, like, work, live, watch, do, have. If you are using in a sentence, you're talking about he, she, or it, then you have to add s to the words. So you become, it will become reads, likes, works, lives, watches, does, has. Alright, so remember that if you're using he, she, or it, you need to add s or es or ies to the word. And if you're using I, we, you, or they, you don't need to add anything. So remember, important, he works, she lives, it rains. Alright, so let's read some examples so that you remember this really well. First example, I work in a shop. Because you're using the word I, you will use the word work. My brother, when you say my brother, you're talking about he. So if you're using he, you will say works. My brother works in a bank. Okay, not my brother work. Okay, this is wrong. Next, Lucy. So in Lucy, what are you using? Lucy is she. So Lucy lives in London. Her parents are talking about two people. Two people, this would be they right? So if you're using they, what do you use? The simple one. Her parents live in Scotland. Next, it rains a lot in winter. All right, because you're using the word it, you will use rains. All right. And then if you're talking about something that you have, you will say I have, he, she, it has. This one you also have to remember. All right, so let's look at this example. Over here, Joe is a he. Joe has a shower every day. All right, now let me just put another example in. Let's just say Tim and John. All right, so if you was talking about Tim and John, will you use has or have? Tim and John. So in this example, Tim and John are they, right? Because it's two people. So you are going to use have because it's they. Tim and John have. All right. So this is how you change the word and add s or es, all right, or ies to it. So any word that ends with the letter s, so like pass, you will change it to passes, passes. Any word that ends with sh, finish, ends with sh, you will change it to finishes, finishes, finishes. And any word that ends with ch, like watch, you would change it to watches, another es, right, like this. Now words that ends with y, you would change it to ies. Study become studies, all right, studies. Try becomes tries, tries. So another thing that you might know, let me just cancel that. Okay, so another word that you might know is the word fry. Okay, Jorda, fry, ends with y, you change that, becomes fries. All right, and then lastly, do become does, go becomes goes. Okay, this one you have to remember. So let's look at explanation B. It says, we use the present simple for things that are true in general or for things that happen sometimes or all the time. When you use present simple, you're talking about things that are true in general. That means မှန်တဲ့ဥစ္စာကိုပြောလို့ရှိရင် you use present simple. Okay, things that happen sometimes တစ်ခါလေဖြစ်တဲ့ဟာဆိုရင် present simple, or all the time အမြဲတမ်းဖြစ်တဲ့ဟာဆိုရင် present simple. So for example, for you, you can say, oh, we attend English classes every weekend. All right, so because you're using the word we will use the word attend. Let me just write it down for you. So we attend English classes every weekend. Okay, so စနေတနင်္ဂနွေမှာဒီ English class ကိုလာပြီးတော့ attend လုပ်တော့ you say we attend English classes every weekend. So this is an example of a present simple. So let's just read some examples over here. So first we have I like big cities. So this one your English is good. You speak very well. Next, we have Tom. Remember, Tom is he. So Tom works very hard. He starts at 7:30 and finishes at 8 o'clock in the evening. Next, we're talking about the earth. The earth is it, right? So the earth goes around the sun. The next example, we have we. So we do a lot of different things in our free time. Next, it costs a lot of money to build a hospital. You will use costs. So if you were to take a look at all these sentences, they are talking about things that are true in general, happen sometimes, or all the time. Okay? So this is when you use present simple. Now, what if you want to use present simple to talk about something that only happens sometimes? You can still use present simple, but you need to add these words. So အမြဲတမ်းဖြစ်ရင် always ဘယ်တော့မှမဖြစ်ရင် never တခါလေဆိုလို့ရှိရင် often or you could use usually. Alright, usually ကကြတော့ပို့ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်တာများတယ်. Okay? And sometimes. So ဒါကတော့တခါတလေပဲ often ကကြတော့အများဆုံးဖြစ်တဲ့ဟာပေါ့ Okay? So always, never, often, usually, sometimes. You could use this before the present simple. Okay? So this is how you would use present simple to talk about something that only happens sometimes. So let's look at some examples. We have Sue. Remember, it's still the same. Sue is a she, so you have to add s. So Sue always gets to work early. Alright, so you have to add all these special words first and then the present simple. You cannot say Sue gets always. Alright, the present simple must come after these words. So present simple ကဘလောက် often ဖြစ်လဲပေါ့ Okay? အဲ့စာလုံးရဲ့နောက်ပြီးမှလာရမယ် Okay? So Sue always gets to work early. I never eat breakfast. Alright? Not I eat, never. This is wrong. Alright? It has to be I never eat. I never eat breakfast. We often go away at weekends. Alright? Often. So we often go away at weekend. Mark is a boy's name, is a he. Mark usually plays football on Sundays. And lastly, we have I sometimes walk to work, but not very often. Try saying this sentence, alright, out loud, because walk and work is very similar. The way you say it, so it can be a little bit of a tongue twister. Alright, so you can try saying this, and if you can say this correctly and clearly, then your English is improving a lot. So you can repeat after me and say, I sometimes walk to work, but not very often. Walk, work. Okay? So I sometimes walk to work, but not very often. Alright, now let's take a look at Unit 6. This one, we are going to do present simple, negative. Okay, so negative means mapideha. Okay, so how do you do present simple negative? How do you turn a sentence, or how do you say something that does not happen? You use the word don't or doesn't and the verb. So remember what are verbs? Verbs are action words, right? Anything that is an action word are verbs. But before the verb, you need to add don't or doesn't. So what are don't and doesn't? Let's explain it in a bit, but let's look at the example first. So first picture. This lady is asking coffee tamla, and she is replying, no thanks, I don't drink coffee. So if you were to describe the picture, you would say she doesn't drink coffee. Remember, drink, tauda, this is a verb because it is an action word. So she doesn't drink coffee. And this person in the second picture, he's saying, I don't like my job. So how you describe this picture, you say he doesn't like his job. Alright? So because you're talking about she, you're talking about he, you're talking about it, you would use the word doesn't. But because look at this picture, she is talking to about herself, she's using the word I. That's why she used don't. He is using the word I, he uses the word don't. Alright, so if it's I, you, we, they, you use don't. If it's he, she, it, you use doesn't. So let's look at this. Positive, like just now, the previous lesson, we have I work, we like, you do, they have. And then for he, she, and it, you have he works, she likes, it does, it has. Alright, so then how do you turn it into a negative? You add don't, which is a short form of do not. So you write do not, right? Do not. Not sort of negativeဖြစ်သွားတယ်. But if you were to shorten it, remember you only use short form when you're talking or it is an informal setting. So do not, it becomes don't. So do not becomes N apostrophe T. Don't. Alright, same with does not. Does not. It becomes doesn't. So how to remember is does N apostrophe T. Does not. The O become an apostrophe. That's how you remember. Okay? So do not becomes don't. Does not become doesn't. So I don't work. We don't work. You don't work. They don't work, or they do not work. And then for he, she, and it becomes he doesn't work. She doesn't work. Alright? So there is something different about this. Do you notice? So in positive, when you are saying he, she, and it, remember you have to have S, ES behind the words. So he works, she works, it does, it has. But in negative form, because you are already using the word doesn't, you do not have to have any S or ES behind the verb. So he doesn't work. You can say he doesn't works. So you don't have to use the S twice. Because you use it here, you do not have to use it here. Okay, so he doesn't work. She doesn't work. It doesn't have. Alright, so the verb becomes the same as if you are using the normal words. Okay, so let's read some examples. So, I drink coffee, but I don't drink tea. Let's look at Sue. Sue drinks tea. Alright, Sue drinks tea. This is normal. But she doesn't drink coffee. Remember, because the doesn't, you already used the ES. You do not have to use it for the word drink. Sue drinks tea, but she doesn't drink coffee. You don't work very hard. We don't watch TV very often. The weather is usually nice. It doesn't rain very often. Sam and Chris don't know many people. Alright, so now we are going to go on to part B. So these are some important things. So remember this, when you say I, we, you, or they, you use the word don't. He, she, and it, you use the word doesn't. Alright, so I don't like football. He doesn't like football. And then let's read some examples over here. I don't like Fred, and Fred, because this is a he, doesn't like me. Alright, you can't say Fred don't like. In broken English, people always use the word don't. But if you want to speak proper English, you need to use the correct word. So if it's he, she, and it, you have to use the word doesn't. So over here, my car doesn't use much petrol. Alright, because my car, this is it. So my car doesn't use much petrol. Next, sometimes he is late, but it doesn't happen very often. Alright. So let's see. We use don't and doesn't plus an infinitive. Infinitive means it goes on forever, which means it's like just a normal word. So don't like, doesn't speak, doesn't do, which is like the simple, the basic word, right? Nothing special done to it. So like, speak, do is just the base form of words. So if you're using don't and doesn't, you are going to use the base form of words. So over here, I don't like washing the car. I don't do it very often. Over here, Sarah speaks Spanish, but she doesn't speak Italian. Alright, this is what I've explained at the start of the chapter. You can say she doesn't speaks. This is wrong. You have to use the base form, the infinitive form of the word, which is like, speak, do. So you just take away anything special of the word, and then you'll have the correct word to use. Alright? So David doesn't do his job very well. Okay? And then next we have Paula doesn't usually have breakfast. Okay? But so this one, same thing, Paula is a she, right? But you can't use the word has. Has is wrong because has is not the infinitive word. The base form is the word have. Alright, so you say Paula doesn't usually have breakfast. Remember, this one, it is how often it happens. So if you say Paula doesn't have breakfast, you're not talking about how often it happens. So you have to say Paula doesn't usually have breakfast. Okay, so in this chapter, you are learning about don't and doesn't, but what you have learned previously in part C still applies. Alright, so you still have to use those sometimes, often, never, always. You can still use it, but just use it before the verb. Okay, Paula doesn't usually have breakfast. Just like this. Okay, so that is all for the grammar. Now let's look at some dialogues in English. And we're just going to listen to some dialogues. So this one, we're going to talk about what time is it? Alright, so let's read. What time is it? We're going to be late. It's 7:15. We're on time. Don't panic. So I'm sure you know how to say the time. If it's 4 나이 ဆိုရင် you'll say 4 o'clock. Alright. နာရီဝက်ဆိုရင်ဘယ်လိုမျိုးပြောမလဲဆိုတော့ 4 နာရီခွဲဆိုရင် you will say 4:30. Alright, because 30 minutes, so in English we'll just say 4:30. And then 4နာရီ15ဆိုရင်ဘယ်လိုမျိုးပြောမလဲဆိုတော့ a quarter ဆိုတာက1/4 ဟုတ်တယ်မလား quarter, so we will say a quarter after 4 4နာရီ15ဆိုရင် a quarter after 4 3နာရီ45ဆိုလို့ရှိရင် you can say 3:45 okay you can just read the time and say 3:45 or you could also say a quarter to 4 so let's just look at the clock all right so this is 3 and then 45 it will be pointing at 9 right so okay the clock will look like this so it's going to turn 4 o'clock soon right so now it's 3:45 so on a digital clock you will see 3:45 right so you could either say the time is 3:45 or you could say because it's going to be over here to here this is a quarter right so you could say a quarter to 4 okay a quarter to 4 so let's continue reading okay so it's a quarter to 7 we're on time don't panic but I thought we had to be at the restaurant by 7:30 okay by 7:30 so this one you'll just say the time but I thought we had to be at the restaurant by 7:30 for the surprise party we'll never make it there with all this evening traffic sure we will rush hour is almost over anyway the party starts at 8 but I do need help with directions can you call the restaurant and ask them where we park our car so rush hour ကပါလဲဆိုတော့ rush hour it's how you describe or talk about a time when အလုပ်ဆင်းချိန်ကြာလို့ရှိရင် you know how there's a lot of cars လမ်းမှာကားတွေအများကြီးပဲအများနဲ့ traffic jam ဖြစ်တယ်မနက်ပိုင်းဆိုရင်လည်းအလုပ်သွားချိန်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင် traffic jam တွေပါအများကြီးဖြစ်တယ်လေဘာလို့ဆိုတော့လူတွေကအဲ့ချိန်ကြာလို့ရှိရင်လူအများဆုံးကအပြင်ထွက်ပြီးတော့အလုပ်လုပ်ဖို့သွားရမှာ journey အဲ့လိုမျိုး travel လုပ်ရမှာဆိုတော့အဲ့ချိန်မှာ traffic jam အများကြီးဖြစ်တဲ့အချိန်ကိုအဲ့ဒါကို rush hour လို့ခေါ်တယ် okay rush hour because everyone is rushing so we call it the rush hour okay but rush hour ဆိုတာတနာရီပဲဖြစ်တာမဟုတ် so if you say hour most of the time you're talking about 1 hour right but rush hour normally talks about a few hours it can be 2 hours it can be 3 hours long okay 2 နာရီ 3 နာရီလောက်ရှည်နိုင်တယ် but we will still use the term rush hour that's the name that you would use to describe that time okay I'm sure you might understand what I'm talking about so just remember that if you want to talk about that specific time it is called the rush hour okay so that is all for this week's lesson I hope you'll do your own practices and continue to practice talking to each other so that you'll improve even more okay and I will see you next week